The royal archives smelled of old leather, parchment, and magic that had settled into the stones over centuries, scents that made me feel safer than I'd ever felt among wolves. I pressed my fingers against the spine of a treaty document from 1847, cataloging its contents in the ledger system I'd spent 8 months perfecting, and tried not to think about the full moon gathering happening in 2 hours. 24 years old, and I still didn't belong anywhere. My wolf stirred restlessly inside me, a whisper of presence that never quite solidified into strength. She'd emerged when I was 22, 8 years too late, broken and incomplete. Other wolves shifted at puberty, their transformations smooth and natural, their wolves strong and whole. Mine came in agony, lasted barely 15 minutes, before exhaustion forced me back to human form and marked me as defective in a world that valued strength above all else. The mandatory gathering would be full of wolves who'd never questioned their place in the hierarchy. Wolves who belonged to families, to packs, to the intricate social structure that made up King Killian's northern territories. 7 formerly independent packs, united under one crown for 7 years now, and I was the outsider among them all. I'd been taken in by the royal pack out of, I wasn't sure what, pity, legal obligation, the king's policy that all wolves deserved a place regardless of strength? Whatever the reason, I'd made myself useful in the only way I could. I was good with records, with patterns, with finding information others missed. If I couldn't contribute with dominance or combatability or any of the qualities wolves valued, at least I could do this. I turned back to the 1847 treaty, noting the discrepancy I'd found in the border descriptions. The eastern boundary had shifted twice in subsequent agreements, but no one had updated the master records. Small errors like this could cause territorial disputes decades later. I added the notation to my growing list of corrections, feeling that familiar satisfaction of solving puzzles no one else had noticed. The archive door creaked open behind me. I didn't turn. Servants came and went throughout the day. Council members occasionally needed documents for meetings. I was furniture here useful, but essentially invisible. That was fine. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant I couldn't disappoint anyone. You look like you're calculating which bookshelf to hide behind when the gathering starts. That voice made me look up. Kieran Ashford leaned against my desk with practiced ease, all charm and approachability wrapped in expensive formal attire. The king's twin brother, and the pack's official beta and diplomat, he looked like he'd stepped out of a portrait, dark hair perfectly styled, storm gray eyes sparkling with amusement, strong features softened by a smile that probably worked on literally everyone. Where his brother was all intensity and controlled power, Kieran radiated warmth, same height, same build, same aristocratic bone structure, but where King Killian commanded rooms with silent authority, Kieran won them over with charisma. That obvious? I asked carefully, setting down the treaty before my suddenly unsteady hands could damage it. Wolves like Kieran didn't usually talk to wolves like me. We existed in different stratospheres. Your wolf is practically begging to bolt. I can smell the anxiety from here. He tilted his head, studying me with what seemed like genuine curiosity. Let me guess mandatory attendance at tonight's full moon gathering. And you'd rather catalog the restricted archives in alphabetical order by scent? I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped. You're not wrong. I'm rarely wrong about people trying to escape social obligations. It's a skill I've honed over years of diplomatic functions. He picked up one of my ledgers, flipping through the careful notations with apparent interest. Kieran Ashford, professional disappointment and the spare, no one expects anything from. Also an expert at finding creative exits from boring events. He said it lightly, self-deprecating humor coating the words, but I caught the edge underneath. Being the twin who wasn't king couldn't be easy, even if he wore it well. Elena Rivera, I offered, then immediately felt foolish. Of course he knew my name. He was beta. He knew everyone's name. I know, his smile widened. The brilliant archivist who's been revolutionizing our document management system and making my job significantly easier. I blinked. What? You've been reading my catalog updates? The words came out more surprised than I'd intended. I have to source historical documents for treaty negotiations constantly. Your system actually makes sense, which is more than I can say for the chaos that existed before you arrived. He set down the ledger, his expression shifting to something more serious. You found the genealogy errors in the Westridge succession line 3 months ago. The ones that showed their alpha's claim to the Eastern Territories was based on a fabricated bloodline connection? Heat crept up my neck. I just noticed the dates didn't align, and the birth records contradicted the succession documents. You noticed what 3 previous archivists and 2 council investigations missed over 15 years. Kieran leaned against the desk, close enough that I caught his scent, fully cedar and stone, and something clean, like rain, pleasant, uncomplicated, safe. That discovery saved us from a territorial dispute that could have fractured our entire Western alliance. The Westridge Pack would have gone to war over those lands if they'd thought they had legitimate claim. I was just doing my job. No, you were doing exceptional work that prevented bloodshed. There's a difference. He studied me for a moment, something thoughtful in his expression. Do you know what I find most interesting about you, Elena? My heart hammered. What? You've been here 8 months. You've restructured our entire archive system, prevented a war, identified supply chain inefficiencies that saved the Treasury thousands in wasted resources, and corrected historical records that affected 3 pack genealogies. You've done all of this quietly, without fanfare, without asking for credit or recognition. He paused. Why? Because it needed to be done, I said simply. And because making myself useful means I have a purpose here, a reason to stay. Something flickered across his face. Understanding, maybe, or sympathy. You think you need to earn your place. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Don't I? I have no family, no pack backing, no political connections. My wolf is. I gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the shame of it. I'm here because the king has a policy about accepting all wolves. That's charity, not belonging. First of all, Killian's policy exists because he's a good man who believes strength comes in many forms. Second, you've more than earned your place through your work alone. Kieran's voice went firm. And third, anyone who makes you feel like you're here on charity is an idiot who can't see value when it's reorganizing their incompetent filing systems. I laughed despite myself, surprised by how much I needed to hear that. So, Kieran continued, his tone shifting back to that easy charm. I have a proposal. You let me escort you to this gathering. We make an appearance, participate in the mandatory howl, and then I show you the secret passage that leads directly from the Great Hall to the Eastern Library. You can disappear into the restricted archives. I can disappear to anywhere that's not full of council members trying to marry their daughters to me, and everyone wins. I stared at him. You want to escort me? I want to spend the evening with someone who has interesting conversations about something other than pack politics and territorial boundaries. He said it so easily, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Plus, you smell like old books and vanilla, which is infinitely better than the 15 different perfumes I'll be subjected to otherwise. I should have said no. Should have recognized this for what it probably was, a powerful wolf being kind to someone beneath his station, maybe out of pity, maybe out of boredom. Kieran was known for his charm, for putting people at ease. This was probably just him being diplomatic. But I was so tired of being invisible. So tired of watching life happen around me while I cataloged other people's histories. And his smile was warm and genuine and made me feel, just for a moment, like I mattered. Okay, I heard myself say, but I'm leaving right after the howl. I don't dance. Can't dance or won't dance. Combination of both. My wolf can barely shift for 15 minutes. You think I have the coordination for formal dancing? That sympathy flickered across his face again, quickly masked. Then we'll skip the dancing entirely. Just the howl and good conversation. Deal? Deal. He straightened, and I caught the full force of his presence, beta energy, confident and steady without being overwhelming. Nothing like the crushing dominance I'd felt from true alphas, but enough to remind me he was far above my status. "I'll find you at sundown," he said, heading toward the door with that easy grace. "Wear something you won't mind getting wrinkled when we're squeezing through those secret passages." I laughed. "You're actually serious about those passages?" "Completely serious. I've been using them since I was 12 and trying to escape tutoring sessions." He paused at the doorway, glancing back. "Elena, you're more than your wolf's strength. Don't let anyone tell you different. Certainly don't tell yourself that." And then he was gone, leaving me standing in the archives with a treaty from 1847, a ledger full of corrections, and the first genuine smile I'd worn in months. I looked down at my work, the careful notations, the patterns I'd identified, the systems I'd built. Maybe Kieran was right. Maybe I had earned my place. At least a little. My wolf stirred again, and for once, it didn't feel like weakness. It felt like possibility. I had 2 hours until the gathering, 2 hours to finish my work, change into something appropriate, and prepare myself for an evening of being seen instead of invisible. The thought terrified me, but I'd said yes to Kieran Ashford, and I wasn't going to back out now. I returned to the 1847 treaty, but my mind wasn't on border disputes anymore. It was on storm-gray eyes and easy smiles, and the strange, fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, someone had finally noticed me. The dress I'd chosen was simple, deep blue silk that brought out my eyes, modest neckline, nothing that would draw excessive attention. I'd learned early that standing out in a world of dominant wolves was dangerous when you had nothing to back it up with. Better to blend in, to be presentable but forgettable. Except tonight, I wasn't trying to be forgettable. Kieran had seen me, valued my work, offered his escort publicly. That meant something, even if I wasn't entirely sure what. I braided my dark hair over one shoulder, the style simple but elegant, and studied my reflection in the small mirror. 24 years old, olive skin that spoke of ancestors from warmer climates, dark eyes that always seemed too serious. I looked acceptable. Not beautiful, not remarkable, but acceptable. Good enough. The knock came precisely at sundown. I opened the door to find Kieran in full formal attire, black suit with silver threading that marked him as beta, his dark hair styled back to show his strong features. He looked like every romantic fantasy I'd never let myself have. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. "You look like you're trying to start a diplomatic incident with that much silver threading." He laughed, genuine and warm. "I like you, Elena Rivera. You're refreshingly honest." I took his offered arm, feeling the solid strength of him through the expensive fabric, and let him guide me through the palace corridors toward the great hall. Wolves we passed did double takes. The beta escorting the packless archivist was unusual enough to generate stares. "Let them look," Kieran murmured, sensing my discomfort. "You have as much right to attend as anyone. Legal right, maybe. Social right is different. Social rights are made-up constructs designed to keep people in predetermined boxes." His voice took on an edge I hadn't heard before. "I've spent my entire life in a predetermined box labeled the spare. Trust me when I say those boxes are only as strong as we let them be." We reached the massive doors to the great hall, and I could hear the din of conversation, smell the mingled scents of hundreds of wolves gathered in one space. My wolf whimpered, wanting to retreat to the safety of my small room and familiar archives. I made myself step forward instead. The great hall was magnificent, soaring ceilings, massive windows overlooking the northern forests, chandeliers blazing with light. Wolves filled every available space, clustered in groups that spoke of pack hierarchy and political alliances. I saw alphas from the 7 territories, their dominant energy making the air itself feel heavier. Council members, in formal robes, warriors and hunters showing off combat scars like badges of honor, families with young wolves being introduced to society. And then there was me, the broken wolf on the arm of the beta, trying not to panic. Kieran must have felt me tense because he squeezed my hand gently. "Breathe. We're just here for the howl, remember? Then escape." He guided me through the crowd with practiced ease, nodding to important wolves, deflecting attempts at conversation with diplomatic grace. We ended up near the massive windows overlooking the forests, far enough from the center of power to avoid intense scrutiny, but close enough to fulfill the attendance requirement. "See? Not so terrible," he said, snagging 2 glasses of wine from a passing servant and handing me one. "We howl in about 30 minutes, then you're free." "You're free too," I pointed out, taking a grateful sip. "Why are you staying with me instead of working the room?" "Isn't that what diplomats do? Diplomats make strategic connections to benefit their pack," he agreed. "But I've been making strategic connections since I was 16. Tonight, I'd rather have genuine conversation with someone interesting." "And you think I'm interesting?" "I think you're the most interesting person in this room. And I'm including the Eastern Alpha who claims he can shift into a bear." I nearly choked on my wine. "He can't actually." "Of course not. But he tells everyone he can, and no one wants to call him on it because he's 7 feet tall and terrifying." Kieran grinned. "See? This is why I like you. You question ridiculous claims instead of just accepting them." We fell into easy conversation, him telling stories about diplomatic disasters, me sharing some of the more absurd historical records I'd found. He made me laugh more than I had in months, and for the first time since arriving at the palace, I felt almost normal. Like I was just a person talking to another person, not a defective wolf grateful for scraps of attention. "You know what I think?" Kieran said, his expression going thoughtful. "I think you've convinced yourself you're lucky to be here, that you should be grateful for any kindness shown to you. But Elena, you're not lucky. The kingdom is lucky to have you." The words hit harder than they should have. I'd spent so long believing I was a burden, someone to be tolerated rather than valued, that hearing the opposite felt like cognitive dissonance. The energy in the hall shifted. It wasn't visible, not exactly, but every wolf in the room felt it. Conversations didn't stop, but they recalibrated. Dominant wolves straightened. Submissive wolves instinctively moved toward the walls, creating space without seeming to. Even the music from the string quartet seemed to quiet, though the musicians kept playing. Kieran's posture changed beside me. His casual lean became something more alert, more formal. The relaxed beta became the official second in command. "Killian's here," he murmured. I'd never been this close when the king entered a room. A ripple moved through the crowd, not a parting exactly, but a shift. Wolves turned, adjusted, created pathways through some instinct I didn't fully understand. And then, I saw him. King Killian Ashford didn't enter rooms. He claimed them, tall, taller than Kieran by maybe an inch, with shoulders that spoke of both combat training and the weight of leadership. His dark hair was longer than his brother's, pulled back in a style that was formal but slightly wild, as if he'd conceded to court requirements but refused to be completely tamed by them. He wore black on black, simple, severe, devastating in its lack of ornamentation, save for the silver wolf emblem at his collar that marked him as king. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Pale ice blue, the color of a frozen lake under winter moonlight. Wolf eyes, even in human form, and they were looking directly at me. My heart hammered hard enough that every wolf within 20 feet could probably hear it. Alphas could always sense fear, and I was radiating it, but I couldn't look away. Couldn't break that gaze, even though every instinct screamed at me to drop my eyes. Submit to the apex predator currently crossing the hall with clear, unwavering intent. He moved through the crowd like water around stone, not because wolves parted for him, but because they instinctively understood what happened to obstacles in his path. Dominant grace, absolute certainty in his right to occupy space. Every step, deliberate, controlled, powerful, and he was walking toward us, toward me, Kieran. The king's voice was deep, controlled, with an edge that made my wolf want to simultaneously submit and challenge. Authority wrapped in civility, power barely leashed. "I didn't expect to see you at the gathering. You usually avoid these." I found compelling reason to attend. Kieran's tone was light, but I felt tension radiating from him now, something unspoken passing between the brothers. King Killian's gaze hadn't left me. Up close, he was overwhelming. He smelled like winter forests and smoke, and something wild that made my broken wolf wake up for the first time in months, not in fear, but in recognition. Power rolled off him in waves, not aggressive but undeniable. The kind of presence that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. "Did you?" Killian said quietly. Still not a question. I should say something. Curtsy. Acknowledge him properly. But my voice had abandoned me entirely, and all I could do was stand there meeting those pale eyes while my heart tried to hammer its way out of my chest. "Your Majesty," Kieran said, formal now in a way he hadn't been all evening. "May I introduce Elena Rivera?" My name in that voice did something to my nervous system. Deep and certain, like he'd said it 1,000 times before. "I know who she is." The world tilted slightly. He knew my name. The king knew my name. "May I have a moment of your time?" Killian asked, and it was phrased as a question but felt like inevitability. My voice came out rough, barely above a whisper. I cleared my throat, tried again. "Of course, Your Majesty." Just Killian. Something flickered in those impossible eyes. "I think we're past formalities." Past formalities? We'd never spoken. I'd seen him from a distance exactly twice in 8 months, once during my initial interview with the head archivist, when he'd walked past without seeming to notice me. Once in passing when he'd moved through the library wing with his counsel, deep in discussion about border negotiations. He'd never looked at me. Never acknowledged my existence, or so I'd thought. Beside me, Kieran shifted his weight, and I felt the moment he understood something I didn't. "Brother, I didn't realize you were interested in. Weren't you just telling me last week that I should attend more social functions?" Killian's tone was mild, almost pleasant, but his eyes never left mine. "Get to know my people better? Participate in pack life beyond council meetings and strategic planning?" A conversation was happening beneath the words. Something between the twins that I couldn't decipher but could feel in the sudden tension. Kieran's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he smiled that easy, charming smile that suddenly looked a little forced around the edges. "Of course. I'll just find the council. They've been asking about the southern border negotiations." He squeezed my hand, once a gesture of comfort or apology or both, and melted into the crowd with diplomatic grace, leaving me alone with the king of the Northern Territories, while hundreds of wolves watched with barely concealed curiosity. Killian stepped closer. Just one step, but it changed everything. His scent surrounded me, winter and smoke and wild things, and every rational thought scattered like leaves in a storm. He was taller than I'd realized, broader, and the intensity radiating from him made my knees weak. I'd been around dominant wolves before. Alpha energy was common enough in the palace, but this was different. This was condensed authority, the weight of 7 packs and a crown, and absolute certainty in his own power. It should have been terrifying. It was terrifying, but it was also magnetic, in a way I couldn't explain. "Walk with me," he said quietly, still not quite a command, not quite a request. Something in between that made refusal feel impossible. Should the gathering will survive without us for a few minutes." His hand came up slowly, giving me time to step back if I wanted. I didn't move, couldn't move. His fingers brushed my elbow, barely contact, but I felt it like electricity. "Please, Elena." That last word decided it. A king who said please. I placed my hand on his offered arm, feeling corded muscle beneath expensive fabric, and let him guide me away from the crowds toward the eastern corridor. Whispers followed us, I heard them, even if I couldn't make out specific words. The king leaving the gathering. With the packless archivist, speculation would be rampant by morning. I should have cared more about that. But all I could focus on was the warmth of his arm under my hand, the way he adjusted his stride to match mine. The fact that he was leading me away from hundreds of witnesses into relative privacy. We'd barely cleared the doorway, barely stepped into the quiet of the corridor, when he stopped and turned to face me fully. Those pale eyes held something fierce and possessive and completely certain. And then he leaned close enough that his breath was warm against my ear. close enough that I could feel the barely leashed power vibrating through him, and spoke 4 words that would change everything. Wrong, brother, sweetheart. The world stopped. My heart stopped beating. My lungs forgot how to draw air. Every thought in my head scattered like startled birds, leaving only those 4 words echoing in the suddenly silent space between us. Wrong, brother, sweetheart. I stepped back, needing distance to process what I'd just heard. What? Killian straightened to his full height, and those ice-blue eyes held mine with an intensity that made me feel pinned in place. Not trapped, just seen. Completely, utterly seen, in a way I'd never experienced before. You heard me. His voice was quiet, controlled, but I heard the current running underneath, something raw and certain and barely contained. Wrong. Brother. I don't understand, don't you? He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle he'd been working on for months. Kieran is charming, easy, safe. He makes you laugh, makes you comfortable, treats you like you matter. All things you deserve, all things you probably haven't had enough of in your life. Each word landed with uncomfortable accuracy. But he's the wrong brother, Elena. Wrong choice. Wrong everything except as a friend, which he'll be. An excellent friend, just not what you need. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together to hide it, but of course he noticed. Kings, alphas, noticed everything. And you know what I need? The words came out sharper than I intended. Defensive. You don't know me. We've never even spoken before tonight. Something that might have been pain flickered across his face, quickly masked. Haven't we? No. I've seen you twice in 8 months. You walked past me both times without... I stopped, replaying those moments in my head. The interview with the head archivist, when I'd thought he hadn't noticed me. The hallway encounter with his counsel. You saw me. I saw you. Not a question, a confirmation. When? The first time? Your interview. You stood in the library with archivist Brendan, answering his questions about organizational systems, and you weren't trying to impress him. You were trying to solve his problems. Killian's voice went softer, almost gentle. You asked him what frustrated him most about the current system, what slowed him down, what kept him awake at night worrying about lost documents. I remembered that interview, remembered being so nervous I'd almost forgotten to breathe, but forcing myself to focus on the work instead of my inadequacy. Most applicants spent their interviews listing their qualifications. Killian continued. You spent yours listening, understanding the actual problems before proposing solutions. And when Brendan asked why you wanted the position, you didn't talk about prestige or proximity to power. You said, he paused, and something that might have been a smile ghosted across his lips. You said you loved finding patterns in chaos, that there was something deeply satisfying about creating order from disorder, even if no one noticed the work. My throat tightened. Those had been my exact words. I noticed, he said quietly. I noticed everything about you from that first moment. Then why? My voice cracked. Why didn't you say anything? 8 months, and you never... Because I'm the king. Frustration bled into his voice for the first time, cracking that careful control. Because I rule 7 packs who barely tolerate each other, held together by political marriages and strategic alliances, and me refusing to show favoritism. Because half my council wants me to mate the Southern Alpha's daughter to solidify that alliance, and the other half wants the Eastern Beta's sister to strengthen those borders. He took a step closer, and I saw the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion around his eyes that I hadn't noticed from a distance. Because every move I make is analyzed, dissected, used as ammunition in political games I'm sick of playing. Because I couldn't approach you, couldn't pursue this until I was absolutely certain. Certain of what? That my wolf wasn't wrong. His eyes flashed pure silver for just a moment, his wolf surfacing, present and undeniable. That this wasn't just attraction or fascination or the novelty of someone who didn't want something from me. That you were worth fighting the council, the families who've positioned their daughters for years, the political fallout that's coming. The corridor suddenly felt too small. the air too thin. "I don't want anything from you," I whispered. "I know." His hand came up to cup my face, the touch gentle despite the power coiled in him. "That's exactly the point. You're the only wolf in 7 territories who looks at me and sees a person first. Not the crown, not the alliances I can forge, not the power I wield, just me." "That's not true. I know who you are. You're the king. When you reorganized the archives, you sent me a memo." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Do you remember it?" I did. I'd agonized over that memo for 3 days, rewriting it a dozen times, certain I was overstepping. I was explaining the new system. You addressed me as "Your Majesty" once at the beginning, then proceeded to tell me exactly why the old system was inefficient and how yours was better. You used words like inadequate and outdated and frankly absurd. You didn't ask permission to implement changes. You informed me you were making them and explained why I should approve. Heat flooded my face. I thought I'd get fired. I thought I'd found the most fascinating wolf I'd ever met. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I shivered. No deference, no posturing, no trying to soften criticism with flattery. Just brilliant, direct, fearless honesty about what needed to change. I wasn't fearless. I was terrified. Being terrified and doing it anyway is the definition of brave. His other hand came up to frame my face, cradling it gently. "And then I watched you for 8 months. Watched you work yourself exhausted trying to prove you belonged. Watched you treat everyone with respect regardless of their rank. Watched you help junior archivists who made mistakes instead of reporting them. Watched you try to make yourself small and invisible because you thought your wolf made you worthless." Tears burned behind my eyes. No one had ever paid this much attention to me. No one had ever seen. "Your wolf isn't worthless, Elena. She's different. There's a distinction." His voice went fierce. "Do you think I give a damn about how long you can hold a shift? About whether you can win fights or hunt elk or any of the other arbitrary measures of strength wolves obsess over? The council does. Your pack does. The council cares about politics. The pack cares about what they've been taught to value. But I care about results, about competence, about integrity and brilliance and the ability to see what others miss." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. "You prevented a territorial war from a desk in the archives. You saved us thousands in wasted resources. You corrected historical records that affected pack genealogies. You did all of that with a broken wolf and no political backing, and people treating you like you were invisible. I was just doing my job." "Stop." The command in his voice made me freeze. "Stop diminishing your accomplishments. Stop telling yourself you're lucky to be here. You earned your place 10 times over before I ever noticed you existed, and I noticed you the first day." "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why me? You could have anyone. Powerful wolves, political alliances, perfect bloodlines. Why would you want—" "Because in 8 months of watching you exist in my world, I've seen more genuine kindness, more brilliant problem-solving, more integrity than I've found in wolves who spend their lives positioning for power." His hands tightened on my face, not painful, but possessive. "Because you work yourself exhausted on projects that benefit others with no thought for personal gain. Because when you found those genealogy errors, you could have used that information for leverage, approached the families involved, traded silence for favors. Instead, you reported it to the council because it was the right thing to do. I hadn't thought about it that way. It had just seemed obvious wrong information needed to be corrected." "That's why," Killian continued, his voice dropping to something almost vulnerable. "Because you don't even realize how rare you are, how precious genuine goodness is in a world of political calculation. Because my wolf has been restless for months, and I didn't understand why until you walked into that gathering on my brother's arm and every possessive instinct I have roared to life." "Your brother," Kieran said. "Kieran is a good man, one of the best I know." Pain flickered across his face. "Using him was cruel. To both of you. But I needed to know if you could feel something for someone in my bloodline." If you could be drawn to a wolf with my scent, my features. I needed to know this was possible before I did something I couldn't take back. Understanding dawned slowly. You tested me. I tested myself, he corrected. Watching him flirt with you was the hardest thing I've done in years. Every instinct screamed at me to cross that hall and claim you publicly. To tell everyone that you were mine. But I needed to be certain this wasn't one-sided desperation. And now, his eyes blazed silver again, his wolf fully present and absolutely certain. Now I'm done waiting, done watching, done pretending I can be rational about you. The council will never accept, I don't care, your alliances. Will adapt or crumble. Either way, I'm done sacrificing what I want for political convenience. His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath caught. I've spent 7 years putting the kingdom first, making strategic decisions, choosing duty over desire. This is mine. This is the one thing I'm choosing for myself. Consequences be damned. The words should have terrified me. The intensity, the certainty, the sheer possessiveness in his voice should have sent me running. Instead, my broken wolf stretched inside me, languid and content, in a way she'd never been. Home, she seemed to whisper. Safe. Right. I don't know how to be what you need, I admitted. I don't know how to stand beside a king, how to navigate politics or alliances, or any of it. I'm good with files and documents and patterns, but people wolves I'm terrible at. You're brilliant at understanding what people need, Killian interrupted. You just don't realize it because you've spent so long convinced you don't matter. But I've watched you, Elena. Watched you help that junior archivist who couldn't read old script by creating phonetic guides instead of reporting her inadequacy. Watched you reorganize the servant schedules so everyone got adequate rest instead of working triple shifts. Watched you treat omegas and warriors with the same respect because you see value in function, not just status. That's just basic decency. Which is shockingly rare in positions of power. He smiled slightly, and it transformed his face from austere to almost boyish. You'll learn the politics. I'll teach you. Kieran will help, he's genuinely fond of you, and once he gets over his wounded pride, he'll be your strongest ally. But the important things, the things that actually matter, you already have those. What things? Integrity, compassion, the ability to see solutions instead of just problems, the courage to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. His forehead rested against mine now, and I could feel his breath warm against my lips. The ability to make me feel like a person instead of a crown, like I matter beyond what I can provide. You do matter, I whispered. I'm not easy to be with, he said quietly. My wolf is demanding, possessive. I'll want to know where you are, that you're safe. I'll struggle with you being in situations I can't control. I'll probably drive you insane with overprotectiveness. That sounds suffocating? Controlling? Self-deprecation colored his tone. I was going to say intense, but not necessarily bad. I surprised myself with the honesty. I've spent my whole life invisible, Killian. Overlooked, forgotten. The idea of someone caring enough to be overprotective? That doesn't scare me. It's kind of what I've always wanted. His eyes searched mine, looking for something. You deserve someone who sees you, who values you, who makes you feel essential instead of optional. Is that what you're offering? I'm offering everything. Raw honesty in every word. My wolf has chosen you. My heart followed months ago, even if I couldn't act on it. Now I'm offering you all of it, the complicated position, the political nightmares, the demanding wolf, the man who hasn't been able to think about anything but you for 8 months. My heart hammered so hard I could barely hear over it. That's a lot. Too much? I don't know, I admitted. This is happening so fast. An hour ago, I was cataloging treaties. Now I'm what? Being claimed by the king? Only if you want to be. He pulled back slightly, giving me space even though I could see how much it cost him. I know this is fast. I know you came here tonight expecting to spend time with Kieran, not have your entire world upended by his brother. But Elena, I meant what I said. Wrong brother. He can offer you comfort and friendship and easy companionship. Those aren't small things. But I can offer you partnership, challenge, the chance to actually use that brilliant mind on problems that matter. And if I'm not strong enough? If my wolf? Your wolf is exactly as strong as she needs to be. Stop measuring yourself by standards designed for warriors and hunters. You're not a warrior. You're something far more valuable, someone who prevents wars instead of fighting them, someone who sees patterns and builds systems and creates order from chaos. He caught my hands, holding them between us like they were precious. I'm not asking you to be something you're not. I'm asking you to be exactly who you are, but beside me, instead of hiding in the archives. To stop making yourself small and let yourself be essential. I'm scared, I whispered. Of me? Of disappointing you. Of not being enough. Of the council and the pack and everyone who's going to question why you chose. He kissed me, not gentle, not asking permission, just claiming and certain and months of restraint breaking apart. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head for better access, and I gripped his shirt to keep from melting into the floor. He tasted like whiskey and winter, and something uniquely him. And my broken wolf surged forward, not in fear, not in pain, just in pure recognition. Yes, this, him. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, and his eyes were pure silver, his wolf fully present and satisfied. You could never disappoint me, he said against my lips. And you are enough, more than enough. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for, Killian. Say yes. His voice dropped to something rough, almost pleading. Say yes to dinner tomorrow night. Private, just us. Let me show you this can work. That, we can work. I should say no, should be sensible and cautious, and recognize this was moving too fast, burning too bright. Kings didn't choose packless archivists with broken wolves. This was a fantasy that would shatter the moment reality intruded. But his hands were warm on my waist, and his wolf was humming contentment through whatever connection we'd just forged. And for the first time in my life, someone was looking at me like I mattered more than anything else in the world. Yes, I heard myself whisper. Yes to dinner. Yes to trying this. The smile that broke across his face was devastating. Joy and relief and fierce possessiveness all tangled together. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, my private quarters. I'll cook. You cook? I contain multitudes. He stole another kiss, softer this time but no less claiming. Now we should return to the gathering before speculation gets completely out of hand. It's already completely out of hand. We disappeared together. Everyone saw. Good. His hand found the small of my back, proprietary and protective. Let them see. Let them start getting used to the idea. The council is going to lose their minds. Probably, but that's tomorrow's problem. He guided me back toward the great hall, his hand never leaving my back. Tonight we participate in the howl. You stay by my side, not Kieran's, and everyone learns that you're mine. The possessiveness in those last words should have worried me. Instead, my wolf preened. Ours, she seemed to say. Finally ours. We stepped back into the great hall, and conversation actually stopped. Hundreds of eyes turned toward us, toward the king with his hand on the packless archivist's back, the clear claim in his posture, the satisfaction radiating from him. I saw Kieran across the room. He met his brother's eyes, something passing between them, then nodded once. Acceptance. Maybe even approval. The council members looked shocked. The families with eligible daughters looked furious. The younger wolves looked curious. I didn't care about any of them. Because Killian's hand was warm and steady at my back, his presence solid beside me, and for the first time in 24 years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Even if that somewhere was absolutely terrifying. The full moon howl happened 20 minutes later. The entire pack assembled on the great lawn behind the palace, hundreds of wolves gathering under moonlight. Traditionally, everyone shifted for the howl, a display of pack unity, of shared wolf nature, of belonging to something larger than yourself. I stood at the edge, panic rising. I couldn't shift in front of all these wolves. Couldn't expose my broken wolf, the painful transformation, the weak form I could barely hold for 15 minutes. Hey, Killian's voice was quiet, meant only for me, despite the crowd around us. You don't have to shift if you don't want to. It's mandatory, for those who can shift comfortably. You're exempt on medical grounds. That's special treatment. That's reasonable accommodation. There's a difference. His hand found mine, squeezed gently. But if you want to try, I'll be right beside you. You won't be alone. Something in his voice made me look up. His expression was open, vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. But your wolf wants this. I can feel it. She wants to join the pack. Howl. Let her. He was right. My wolf was pressing at my skin, restless and eager in a way she rarely was. The full moon called to her, and for once, she wasn't whimpering in pain. She was curious. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll try. Killian's smile was bright and proud. That's my girl. Around us, wolves began to shift. The sound was different for everyone, some smooth and quick, others taking longer. But within minutes, the lawn was full of wolves in every color and size. Massive alphas, sleek warriors, smaller omegas. A pack in all its diversity. I closed my eyes and reached for my wolf. The shift started like it always did, pain lancing through my bones, my body fighting the transformation. I gasped, stumbling, and felt Killian's steadying hand on my shoulder. Breathe, he murmured. Don't force it. Let her come. I tried to relax into it instead of tensing against the pain. And slowly, so slowly, my wolf began to emerge. My bones reformed, my senses sharpened. Fur rippled across my skin, dark brown with hints of copper in the moonlight. And then I was down on 4 legs, smaller than most of the wolves around me, but whole. My wolf form was complete. I stood there, shocked. The transformation had hurt, yes, but less than usual. And I wasn't immediately exhausted. I felt stable, present. A massive silver wolf moved beside me, Killian. His wolf form even more impressive than his human one. He was easily twice my size, pure silver fur that caught the moonlight like frost. His ice-blue eyes found mine, and I felt his approval, his pride through whatever bond was forming between us. The pack howl began. It started with the alpha's Killian's voice leading, deep and commanding. Then the betas joined, including Kieran's lighter tone. Warriors and hunters, omegas and juveniles, until hundreds of voices rose together in a sound that was both wild and achingly beautiful. My wolf added her voice. It was small compared to the others, not particularly strong or impressive, but it was mine. And for the first time in my life, I was part of something. Not watching from the edges, not excluded, but genuinely participating in pack ritual. Killian's howl twined with mine, and I felt the bond between us solidify. Not complete, that would require a claiming bite, but present. Real. Undeniable. When the howl ended and we shifted back to human form, I was exhausted but exhilarated. I'd held the shift for almost 20 minutes longer than I ever had before. Killian pulled me close immediately, not caring who saw. You were perfect. I was small and weak. You were brave and beautiful and part of this pack. That's what matters. He pressed a kiss to my temple. How do you feel? Tired, but good. Really good, actually. Your wolf is stronger than you think. She just needed a reason to emerge fully. His arms tightened around me. She needed to feel safe. Around us, pack members were dispersing, heading back to the palace or to their quarters. I caught several stares, some curious, some hostile, some speculative. News of the king's interest in the packless archivist was spreading like wildfire. Come on, Killian said. Let's get you somewhere quiet. He guided me through the palace corridors, his hand never leaving mine, until we reached a section I'd never been to before. Private quarters, the royal wing. Killian, I shouldn't. You should. He opened a door, revealing a suite that was surprisingly understated. Welcome to my actual home, not the formal quarters I use for state functions. The room was lived in books everywhere, maps covering one wall, A massive desk buried under documents and reports. It smelled like him, winter forests and smoke, and something about that made it feel intimate in a way a throne room never could. "Sit," he said, guiding me to a comfortable sofa. "I'll get you water." He disappeared into an adjoining room, and I took the opportunity to look around. The books were varied history, philosophy, military strategy, but also poetry and fiction. The maps showed the 7 territories in different configurations, marked with notes in his handwriting, evidence of a brilliant mind constantly working. He returned with 2 glasses of water and settled beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. "Thank you," I said, taking the glass. "For tonight, for the howl, for all of it. You don't need to thank me for treating you like you matter. That should be baseline." He studied me for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why do you think so little of yourself?" The question hit harder than I expected. "I don't." "You do. You genuinely believe you're lucky to be here, that you're a burden being tolerated out of charity, that your wolf makes you worthless." His voice was gentle but firm. "Where does that come from?" I set down my water, clasping my hands to keep them from shaking. "You know what happens to wolves who shift late? Who have weak wolves? Tell me anyway." "They get rejected. Families don't want them, they're liabilities. Embarrassments. Packs barely tolerate them. I spent 2 years after my wolf emerged, trying to find a pack that would take me. Do you know how many rejected me outright? How many? 16. I applied to 16 different packs across 3 territories. Got rejected by all of them. They said I'd be dead weight, that I couldn't contribute, that I'd be a drain on resources. The old shame burned in my chest. Your recruiter was the first person who didn't immediately dismiss me. And even then, I know I got this position because of your policy about accepting all wolves, not because anyone actually wanted me here. Killian's jaw clenched. The wolves who rejected you are idiots who can't see value beyond brute strength. Their loss is my gain, but they weren't wrong. I can't fight, can't hunt, can barely shift. You prevented a war through research and pattern recognition. You've saved us thousands in wasted resources. You've improved efficiency across multiple departments. You've mentored junior archivists who were struggling. You've done all of that in 8 months. He turned to face me fully. Elena, you've contributed more to this kingdom's stability than most warriors will in their entire lives. Combat isn't the only form of strength. Try telling that to the council. I will, repeatedly, until they understand. He caught my hand. But I need you to understand it first. Need you to stop measuring yourself by standards designed for a completely different role. You're not a warrior, and that's fine. We have plenty of warriors. What we need, what I need, is someone who can think strategically, solve complex problems, see patterns others miss. Someone who makes me better at my job by understanding how the kingdom actually functions. Is that what you want from me? Professional competence? I want everything from you. Professional competence, yes, but also partnership, companionship, someone I can trust completely, someone who challenges my ideas and makes them better, someone who sees me as a person first. He raised my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am. My throat tightened. I don't know how to be that person. You already are that person. You just need to start believing it. His thumb traced circles on my hand. Tomorrow night, we'll have dinner. You'll see where I actually live, not the formal spaces. We'll talk like we did tonight, no performance, no guards up. And you'll start to understand that this isn't a fantasy that will shatter. It's real, and it's possible, and we're going to make it work. The council is my problem to handle, not yours. Your job is to keep being brilliant and kind and yourself. Let me worry about the politics. That doesn't seem fair. If I'm going to be part of your life, I should share the burden. You will, eventually. But right now, you're still learning to see your own value. Let me protect you from the worst of it until you're ready. He smiled slightly. Consider it selfish on my part. I finally have you. I'm not letting anyone make you doubt this before we've barely begun. I studied him, this powerful king who could have anyone, who carried the weight of 7 packs, who was looking at me like I was precious beyond measure. "I don't understand why you want me," I admitted quietly. "Of all the wolves you could choose. Because when I watch you work, you get this expression, total focus, like nothing exists except the problem you're solving. Because you take notes in the margins of documents, using 3 different colored inks to categorize information. Because you rearrange books by subject and chronology simultaneously, which shouldn't be possible, but somehow you make it work. Because you hum when you think no one's listening, and it's always slightly off-key, and it's adorable." My face heated. "You've been watching me that closely? I told you, 8 months. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and not enough cream, that you skip lunch when you're deep in a project, that you're left-handed but learn to write with your right hand because someone told you it was improper, that you alphabetize everything except your personal books, which you organize by emotional value. That's borderline stalking. That's me being absolutely certain before upending both our lives." He cupped my face gently. "I don't do anything halfway, Elena. When I commit completely. So yes, I watched, I learned. I made sure this wasn't infatuation or curiosity, and every single thing I learned made me more certain that you're exactly who I want. What if I'm not ready for this? For you? Then we'll go slow. As slow as you need. I'll court you properly. Dinner, conversations, time to build trust. I'm not expecting you to decide your entire future tonight." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "But I am asking you to give this a real chance, to stop assuming you're not good enough and actually see if we work together. And if we don't?" Pain flickered across his face. "Then I'll respect that. I won't force this. But Elena, I really think we will." His certainty was intoxicating, terrifying, overwhelming, but also exactly what I'd been searching for my entire life, someone who was absolutely sure about me when I couldn't be sure about myself. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, we try this. For real." The smile that broke across his face was devastating. "Yeah?" "Yeah, but slowly. I need time to process all of this, to figure out how to be what you need. You're already what I need, and to learn how to navigate this world. I don't want to embarrass you in front of the council, or make political mistakes that cost you alliances, or—" He kissed me, cutting off the spiral of anxiety. It was softer than before, more tender, a promise instead of a claim. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "You won't embarrass me. You'll probably challenge me, push back on my ideas, make me explain my reasoning, all things I desperately need. But embarrass me? Never. You sound very sure." "I am. About this. About you. About us." His hand slid into my hair, cradling the back of my head. "I've spent 7 years being unsure about almost everything. Making impossible decisions with incomplete information, balancing competing interests, and hoping I'm choosing the least bad option. But this? You? This is the first thing I've been completely certain about since I took the crown." The weight of those words settled over me, the responsibility, the trust, the terrifying possibility that maybe I was enough after all. "I should go," I said reluctantly. "It's late, and people will talk if I stay too long." "Let them talk. But you're right, you should rest. Tomorrow's going to be complicated." He stood, pulling me up with him. "I'll walk you back to your quarters." "You don't have to." "I do, and I want to." He guided me through the corridors, his hand at my back, until we reached my small room in the staff wing. The contrast was stark, his private suite full of books and maps and personal touches, my room barely more than a bed and a small desk. "This is where you've been living?" His voice was carefully neutral. But I heard the disapproval. "It's fine. I don't need much space." "You need more than this." He looked around the cramped room, jaw tight. "Starting tomorrow, we're finding you better quarters. Something appropriate for—" He stopped, seeming to reconsider his words. "Something where you have space to actually live, not just exist. Killian, I can't just move into nicer quarters without reason. People will know I value you." "Good. They should know that." He turned to me, cupping my face with both hands. Elena, you're not staff anymore. You're going to be my partner, my mate, if you'll have me. That means you deserve quarters that reflect your importance. The word mate sent a thrill through me, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. One thing at a time, I managed. Let's start with dinner tomorrow, before we start rearranging my entire life. He smiled. Fair enough, but the better quarters are happening regardless. Consider it non-negotiable. Bossy? I'm the king. It's kind of in the job description. He leaned down, brushed a soft kiss across my lips. Sleep well, sweetheart. Dream of tomorrow. Tomorrow, I echoed. He reluctantly stepped back, his hand trailing down my arm until only our fingertips touched. Then he turned and walked away, glancing back once with a smile that promised everything. I closed my door and leaned against it, heart racing, mind spinning. 8 hours ago, I'd been the invisible archivist, planning to hide in the corners of a mandatory gathering. Now I was, what? The king's interest? His potential mate? The wolf who'd somehow caught the attention of the most powerful alpha in 7 territories? It didn't feel real, but his scent was still on my skin, and my wolf was purring contentment. And the memory of his kiss made my lips tingle. Real or not, it was happening. And tomorrow, I'd have dinner with a king and figure out if I was brave enough to become a queen. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw ice blue eyes and felt phantom touches on my skin. Heard wrong brother, sweetheart, in that deep voice. Remembered the feeling of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in my life. By dawn, I gave up on sleep entirely and headed to the archives. Work would ground me, help me process, give me something concrete to focus on while my entire world tilted sideways. The archives smelled like safety, old parchment, and leather and familiar order. I lit the lamps, settled at my desk, and pulled out the project I'd been working on before everything changed. A comprehensive index of border treaties organized by date, territory, and key provisions. I'd been working maybe 20 minutes when I heard footsteps. I figured I'd find you here. I looked up to find Kieran in the doorway, casual in training clothes instead of formal attire. His expression was carefully neutral, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. Kieran. Words failed. What did you say to the man you'd spent an evening with before his brother claimed you publicly? Relax. I'm not here to make this awkward. He moved into the room, settling on the edge of my desk with that familiar ease. Though we should probably talk about last night. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was going to. I didn't plan for any of that. Hey, his voice was gentle. Stop apologizing. You didn't do anything wrong. I led you on. No, I flirted with you knowing my brother had been watching you for months. If anyone was being dishonest, it was me. He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Elena, I meant what I said yesterday. I do like you. You're brilliant and kind and you make me laugh. In another world, without Killian's prior claim, yeah, I'd have pursued this seriously. But the moment he walked into that hall and saw us together, I knew. I've never seen my brother look at anyone the way he looked at you, like you were the only thing in the room that mattered. Like he'd fight anyone who tried to take you away. Kieran smiled slightly. He's been miserable for months, and I didn't understand why. Now I do. He was waiting. For you. He said he needed to be certain. He did. Killian doesn't do anything casually, especially not relationships. He needed to know his wolf wasn't wrong, that this was real, before he could act on it. Kieran paused. Can I tell you something, brother to potential sister-in-law? Of course. He's been alone for 7 years, surrounded by people constantly but genuinely alone. Everyone wants something from him. Alliances, favors, political advantage. He can't trust anyone's motives because everyone has an agenda. Kieran's voice went quiet. You're the first person who looked at him and just saw Killian. Not the king, not the alliances he could forge. Just him. That's what he said. Because it's true. And it's rarer than you think. Kieran studied me for a moment. You're good for him, Elena. I saw it last night. His wolf settled. Calm in a way I haven't seen since he took the crown. That's not small. That's everything. Warmth bloomed in my chest, followed immediately by panic. What if I can't be what he needs? What if... You're already what he needs. You just have to start believing it. He stood, squeezing my shoulder once. For what it's worth, you have my full support. I'll help however I can, teaching you protocol, running interference with the council, whatever you need. Why would you help me? I'm the woman my brother has chosen, the wolf who makes him happy. That's reason enough, his smile returned, familiar and warm. Plus, I genuinely like you. You're interesting, which is rare. And you called my brother bossy, which is hilarious and accurate. I couldn't help but laugh. He is bossy. Comes with the territory, literally. Kieran headed for the door, then paused. Elena? About what I said yesterday, wrong, brother. I meant it then, and I mean it now. Not because there's anything wrong with me, but because he's right for you in ways I'm not. He'll challenge you, push you to see your own value, make you better. I'd have just made you comfortable. Comfortable isn't a bad thing. No, but it's not what you need. You need someone who won't let you hide. He flashed that charming grin. Now go have dinner with my brother tonight, and try not to completely break his composure. The kingdom needs him functional. He left, and I sat there processing. Kieran approved. More than approved, he was actively supporting this. That should have made things easier. Instead, it made them more real, more possible, more terrifying. I forced my attention back to my work. Treaties, border agreements, concrete facts I could organize and categorize. Safe ground. I'd been working for another hour when a palace servant arrived, looking nervous. Miss Rivera? The king requests your presence in his office. My heart jumped. Now? If you're available, miss. Of course I was available. When the king summoned you, you went. I followed the servant through the palace to Killian's official office, not the private study I'd seen last night, but the formal space where he conducted kingdom business. The servant knocked, announced me, and disappeared. Come in, Killian's voice called. I pushed open the heavy door to find him behind a massive desk covered in documents, looking every inch the king in formal attire. Ice blue eyes found mine immediately, and his expression softened. Elena, thank you for coming. Of course. You summoned me, your Killian. I caught myself, a slight smile. Close the door, please. I did, suddenly aware we were alone in his office. In a room designed to intimidate, with its towering bookshelves and massive windows overlooking the territories. He stood, moving around the desk with that predatory grace, and crossed the space between us. I couldn't wait until tonight, he admitted. Needed to see you. To make sure last night was real and not something I imagined. It was real. Good. His hand came up to cup my cheek, thumb tracing my cheekbone in a gesture that was becoming familiar. How are you? Did you sleep? Not really. Too much to process. Same. I gave up around 4 and started working. He gestured to the desk buried under documents. Tried to focus on border negotiations. Ended up staring at nothing and thinking about you instead. The admission made my heart flutter. The border negotiations are important. Not as important as you. He said it simply, like it was obvious. Elena, I need to warn you about something. Anxiety spiked. What? The council knows. They're calling an emergency session this afternoon to discuss the situation. Discuss me, you mean? Yes. They're going to have concerns, questions, objections. His jaw tightened. I won't lie to you, it's going to be uncomfortable. They'll investigate your background, question your qualifications, raise every political objection they can think of. Should I be there? To defend myself? No, not yet. Let me handle the initial fallout. Once they've vented their concerns and done their investigating, then you'll have your chance to speak. His hands framed my face. But Elena, I need you to understand something. Whatever they say, whatever objections they raise, It doesn't change my decision. You're mine. My choice. And I'm not backing down from that. What if they're right? What if I'm not? They're not right. They're politically calculating, which is their job, but they're wrong about what I need, what the kingdom needs. He leaned his forehead against mine. Trust me. Can you do that? It was a bigger question than it seemed. Trust him. Trust that he knew what he was doing. Trust that I was enough. I'll try, I whispered. That's all I ask. He pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Now, tonight, 7 o'clock, my private quarters. I'll cook, we'll talk, and you'll see that this can work. That we can work. What should I wear? Whatever makes you comfortable. This isn't formal. This is just us. His thumb traced my lower lip. I want to know everything about you, Elena. Your favorite foods, what makes you laugh, what you dream about. All the small details I haven't learned yet. That's a lot of questions for one dinner. Then we'll have many dinners. He said it with such certainty. Like there was no question we'd have time for all of it. But we start tonight. A knock at the door made us both jump. Killian sighed, stepping back reluctantly. Come in. Marcus, his head of guard, entered. Sire, the council is assembling. They're requesting you join them. Tell them I'll be there shortly. Marcus bowed and left. Killian turned back to me, frustration evident in every line of his body. I have to go deal with this. But tonight, it's just us. No interruptions. I'm making that very clear. Okay, 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, he confirmed. Then, with a glance at the door to make sure we were alone, he pulled me close and kissed me hard and possessive and promising. Mine, he murmured against my lips. Yours, I agreed, and meant it with every fiber of my being. He forced himself to step back, running a hand through his hair. I need to go before I say something to the council I'll regret. Be diplomatic. I'll try, but if they insult you, all bets are off. He headed for the door, then paused. Elena? Whatever you hear today, rumors, gossip, speculation, ignore it. Come to me directly. Ask me anything, but don't let secondhand information make you doubt this. I won't. He nodded once and left, leaving me alone in his office with the scent of winter forests and the memory of his kiss. I sank into one of the chairs, trying to steady my racing heart. The council was meeting, to discuss me, to raise objections, to try to talk him out of this, but Killian had been clear he wasn't backing down. This was happening, council approval or not. I just had to be brave enough to let it happen, to believe I was worth fighting for. The door opened again, and I expected another servant. Instead, an older woman entered, elegant, sharp-eyed, radiating authority. I recognized her immediately from council meetings I'd observed while researching historical records. Councillor Thorne, head of the King's Council, Miss Rivera. Her voice was cultured, careful. I thought I might find you here. I stood immediately. Councillor Thorne, I was just leaving. Stay, please. I'd like a word. This couldn't be good. I stayed, because refusing a direct request from the head of the King's Council seemed like a terrible idea, even if my instincts were screaming at me to run. Councillor Thorne closed the door with a soft click that felt ominous. She was perhaps late 50s, her dark hair threaded with silver. Her bearing regal despite not having a drop of royal blood. She'd been on the council since before Killian took the crown, a survivor of political upheavals and pack wars who'd earned her position through sheer competence. She terrified me. Please sit, she said, gesturing to the chair I'd just vacated. I sat. She took the chair opposite, studying me with eyes that missed nothing. You're frightened, she observed. No point lying. Yes, ma'am. Good. Fear means you understand the gravity of the situation. She folded her hands in her lap, the gesture somehow both maternal and predatory. Do you know why the council is meeting this afternoon? To discuss my relationship with the king. To discuss the fact that our king has publicly claimed a packless archivist with a defective wolf and no political connections whatsoever. Her tone wasn't cruel, just brutally factual. You understand this is problematic. I understand the council has concerns. Concerns. She smiled slightly, without humor. That's diplomatic. The reality is that half the council is furious, a quarter is confused, and the rest are calculating how to use this to their advantage. I'm trying to determine which category you fall into. I don't understand. Are you a calculated political move? An attempt to destabilize existing alliances? A plant from a rival faction? Her eyes narrowed. Or are you genuinely what you appear to be, a lonely wolf who caught the king's attention through sheer chance? The accusation stung, even phrased as a question. I'm an archivist who did her job, that's all. Is it? Because in 8 months, you've prevented a territorial war, identified supply chain inefficiencies, corrected genealogy records affecting 3 pack lines, and restructured our entire document management system. That's either exceptional competence or exceptional positioning. It's just pattern recognition. I see what others miss. Precisely what worries me. Thorne leaned forward slightly. You see what others miss. You identify weaknesses in systems. You find errors that have existed for years. Those are incredibly valuable skills or incredibly dangerous ones, depending on your intentions. I have no intentions beyond doing my job well. Everyone has intentions, Miss Rivera. The question is whether yours align with the king's best interests or work against them. Anger flickered through the fear. You think I'm using him? I think you're a very intelligent wolf who spent 2 years being rejected by 16 different packs before finding sanctuary here. I think desperation makes people do calculated things. I think the king is powerful, lonely, and you've positioned yourself perfectly to. I didn't position myself anywhere. The words came out sharper than intended, but I didn't care anymore. I cataloged documents in a corner where no one noticed me. I worked late because I had nowhere else to be. I fixed problems because they needed fixing, not because I was trying to catch anyone's attention. And yet, you caught the king's attention quite thoroughly. I didn't ask for that. I didn't pursue it. He approached me, not the other way around. After you'd spent 8 months demonstrating your value. Thorne's voice was maddeningly calm. After you'd made yourself essential to the kingdom's infrastructure. After his brother had publicly shown interest, making you suddenly visible in social circles where you'd been ignored before. The implication was clear. I'd orchestrated all of it. You don't know me, I said quietly. You don't know anything about me except what you've read in reports. Then help me understand. Why you? Why does the king look at you like you're the only thing in the world that matters? What makes you different from the dozens of qualified, politically connected, powerful wolves who've been vying for his attention for years? I don't know, the honest answer. I asked him the same thing. He said I see him as a person first, not a crown. That I don't want something from him. Everyone wants something, Miss Rivera. I just wanted to belong somewhere. My voice cracked slightly. I spent 2 years homeless, packless, being told I was worthless because my wolf is broken. When I finally found a place here, a job I was good at, work that mattered, that was enough. I didn't need anything else. And now? Now I'm terrified, because the king has offered me everything I never thought I could have, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to take it. To be what he needs. To face a council that clearly thinks I'm a scheming opportunist, instead of just a lonely wolf who got lucky. Silence stretched between us. Thorne studied me with those sharp eyes, and I forced myself not to drop my gaze. To show I had nothing to hide. You love him, she said finally. Not a question. I barely know him. That's not what I asked. I thought about ice blue eyes and careful touches. About someone seeing my value when I couldn't see it myself. About feeling safe for the first time in years. I could love him, I admitted. Easily. If he lets me. And that terrifies you more than the council, doesn't it? Yes. Something shifted in Thorne's expression. Not softening exactly, but reconsidering. I've served this kingdom for 32 years, Miss Rivera. I watched Killian's father rule, and now I watch him. Do you know what I've learned in that time? What? That power attracts sycophants. that everyone has an agenda, that genuine goodness is rare enough to be precious. She stood, moving to the window overlooking the territories. Killian is a good man, a brilliant leader, but he's been alone in ways that would break lesser wolves. The crown is isolating. People see the position, not the person. I see the person. I know. That's what worries me, and what gives me hope. She turned back to me. The council will investigate you thoroughly. Your background, your work, your intentions. They'll look for anything that suggests you're a threat, or a manipulator, or a liability. I'm going to be very honest with you. They will find things to object to. Your wolf's weakness, your lack of family, your absence of political connections. I know, but if you're genuine, if you truly care about him, and not just what he can give you, then those objections are surmountable. I can work with genuine. What I cannot work with is deception. I'm not deceiving anyone. Then you'll survive the council's scrutiny. It won't be pleasant, but you'll survive. Thorn moved toward the door, then paused. One more question. If the council formally objects, if we tell the king this union is politically disastrous and strongly recommend he choose someone else, what would you do? My heart sank. I don't know. Would you step aside? Remove yourself from the situation to spare him the conflict? The thought of walking away from Killian made my chest ache. But if staying meant damaging his rule, fracturing his council, destabilizing the kingdom, if that's truly what's best for him, yes, I'd step aside. Thorn's expression shifted again. Approval. Maybe. That's the first thing you've said that makes me believe you might actually be good for him. What? Someone who's using him would cling tighter when threatened, would manipulate, scheme, refuse to leave. You're willing to walk away if it's in his best interest. She opened the door. That suggests you actually care about him more than what he represents. I do care about him. Then prove it. Weather the council's scrutiny with grace. Don't hide or make yourself small. Stand your ground, but do it with the dignity befitting someone who might someday lead beside him. Her voice took on an edge. Because make no mistake, Miss Rivera, if you continue this relationship, you're not just dating the king. You're potentially becoming queen. And that requires strength most wolves never develop. The word queen hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so focused on Killian, on this impossible attraction, on being seen for the first time, that I hadn't fully processed what it meant. Queen of the Northern Territories. Leader of 7 packs. Public figure. Political target. The responsibility was crushing. I don't know if I can be that, I whispered. Neither did I when I joined the council. Neither did Killian when he took the crown. We learn, we grow, we become what's necessary. Thorn's expression softened fractionally. But Elena? You've already shown more strength than you realize. You survived 2 years of rejection and kept working toward belonging. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. That's not weakness. That's the exact kind of strength queens are made from. She left before I could respond, leaving me alone in Killian's office with my spinning thoughts and racing heart. Queen. The word echoed in my head. Terrifying and impossible. I wasn't queen material. Queens were powerful, politically savvy, strong wolves who commanded respect. I was a packless archivist who'd spent her life invisible. But Thorn's words lingered. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. That's not weakness. Maybe she was right. Maybe surviving 16 rejections and still believing I deserved belonging was its own kind of strength. Maybe I was stronger than I thought. I just had to start believing it. I didn't attend the council session. Killian had been clear about that, but I heard about it anyway. Palace gossip traveled faster than wildfire, and by late afternoon, everyone knew the council had convened to discuss the king's romantic interests. The diplomatic phrasing fooled no one. I tried to work, tried to focus on the treaty index I'd been compiling, but my hands shook every time I thought about what was being said in that council chamber. Around 4 o'clock, Kieran found me in the archives. You look terrible, he observed, settling onto my desk. Thank you. Very helpful. I mean, you look stressed. Have you eaten today? I couldn't remember. Probably not. He produced an apple from his jacket pocket. Eat. You'll need your strength for tonight. How do you know about tonight? Killian told me, very explicitly, in detail, including the specific threat he'd make against anyone who interrupted his private dinner with you. Kieran grinned. He's taking this very seriously. The council is being predictably difficult, but Killian's holding firm. He paused. Can I tell you what happened? Unofficially? Please. Thorne opened by acknowledging your competence, which surprised everyone but raised concerns about political implications. The Eastern Beta's representative objected to the insult of passing over his sister. The Southern contingent reminded everyone about the alliance marriage proposal. Conservative factions questioned your wolf's weakness and what that means for potential heirs. Each objection landed like a stone in my stomach, and Killian shut them down systematically, pointed out that your work has saved the kingdom more than any political marriage could, reminded them that pack law makes mate choice sovereign, asked if they were really suggesting we return to arranged marriages for political convenience. Kieran's smile widened. Then he told them in very formal language that they could investigate you all they wanted, but his decision was final. They're going to hate me. Some will. Some already respect you, Thorne, especially. She called you refreshingly honest and suggested the council might benefit from your problem-solving approach. He nudged my shoulder. You have allies, Elena. You just don't know it yet. What about you? Are you really okay with this? I told you this morning I'm completely okay with it. More than okay. You're good for him, and he deserves someone good. Kieran's expression turned serious, but I need to warn you about something. Anxiety spiked. What? The families who'd positioned their daughters for King Killian aren't going to give up easily. They've invested years in this. They're going to come after you, not physically, but socially. Rumors, subtle sabotage, making you feel unwelcome. You need to be prepared for that. How do I prepare for social warfare? By not engaging. By being so competent and kind that their rumors look like bitter jealousy. By making allies in unexpected places. He pulled something from his pocket, a small book, leather-bound and worn. This is a guide to court protocol and pack hierarchy. Study it. Know who outranks whom, what gestures mean what, how to navigate formal functions without accidentally insulting someone. I took the book, touched by the gesture. Thank you. Thank me by not letting them grind you down. You belong here, Elena. Start acting like it. He left, and I opened the book. Pages of protocol, how to address different ranks, what clothing was appropriate for which functions, the subtle language of pack dynamics. It was overwhelming. But it was also concrete, learnable, something I could study and master. I spent the next 2 hours absorbing information, making notes, memorizing the complex web of hierarchy and custom that governed court life. By 6:30, I'd absorbed as much as my brain could hold. Time to get ready for dinner. I returned to my small room and stared at my limited wardrobe. Killian had said to wear whatever made me comfortable, but what did that mean? Casual seemed too informal for dinner with the king. Formal seemed like I was trying too hard. I settled on a simple dress, deep green, that brought out my eyes. Modest, but flattering. I braided my hair loosely over one shoulder, applied minimal makeup, and studied my reflection. I looked nervous. Well, I was nervous. At precisely 7 o'clock, I stood outside Killian's private quarters, hand raised to knock, heart hammering. The door opened before I could. Killian stood there in casual clothes, dark pants, and a simple shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd showered recently, and he looked younger, more human. Devastating. Elena. My name and his voice still did things to me. You're exactly on time. Is that good or bad? It's perfect. Come in. I stepped into his private suite, the real one, not the formal quarters. It smelled like him and cooking food. An unexpectedly domestic combination. I hope you're hungry, he said, guiding me toward a small dining table set for 2. I might have made too much food. The table held an impressive spread: roasted chicken, vegetables, bread, salad. Candles provided soft lighting, and through the windows, I could see the forests under moonlight. It was intimate, personal, nothing like I'd expected. You really did cook, I said, surprised. I told you I would. He pulled out my chair. I'm not completely helpless without servants, despite what people assume. I sat, and he settled across from me, serving food with the same careful attention he probably applied to everything. How was the council? I asked. Predictably difficult, but handled. He met my eyes. I meant what I said this morning. They don't change my decision. You're mine, Elena. Council approval or not. Thorne visited me today. His expression darkened. What did she say? She wanted to understand my intentions. Asked if I was using you. And you told her? The truth. That I'm terrified and have no idea what I'm doing, but I care about you. I picked at my food. She said if I'm genuine, I'll survive their scrutiny. You are genuine. They'll see that. Will they? Or will they just see what they want to see? A packless wolf trying to social climb? Killian set down his fork, his full attention on me. Elena, look at me. I did. I don't care what they see. I know what you are. I know your intentions. I know you're not using me. His voice was firm, certain, and eventually, they'll know it too. But in the meantime, you need to trust that I can handle the council while you focus on what matters. What matters? This. Us. Learning each other. Building something real. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. So let's start. Tell me something I don't know about you. The change in subject was deliberate, giving me space to breathe. I took it gratefully. What do you want to know? Everything. But start small. What's your favorite food? Chocolate. Any kind. It's probably a problem. His smile was warm. Not a problem. A useful data point. Continue. What do you want to know? What do you do when you're not working? Read. Mostly. History. Philosophy. Sometimes terrible romance novels. I'm embarrassed to admit I enjoy. Don't be embarrassed. What else? I don't know. I work a lot. I don't really have hobbies. Something sad flickered across his face. Because you've been trying to prove you deserve to be here. Maybe. What would you do if you didn't feel like you had to prove anything? If you just existed, and that was enough? The question struck deeper than he probably meant it to. What would I do? I'd explore the forests, I said slowly. I've been here 8 months and never left the palace grounds. I'd want to see the territories, understand the land, meet wolves outside the court. We'll do that. Soon. I'll take you to all 7 territories, show you everything. His thumb traced circles on my hand. What else? I'd learn to cook. Actually cook, not just survive on whatever the kitchen staff provides. I'd want to create things instead of just organizing what others create. I can teach you. I'm a decent cook. This meal is more than decent. I had motivation impressing you. His eyes held mine. What else? Keep going. I'd try to shift more. Practice until my wolf is stronger. I know she's weak now, but maybe with time. Your wolf responded to mine last night. At the howl. You held your form longer than usual. 20 minutes. Still pathetic by normal standards. But progress. That's what matters. He squeezed my hand. Your wolf recognizes mine. The bond is helping her stabilize. Give it time. We ate and talked, the conversation flowing easier than I expected. He told me about growing up as the heir, the pressure and expectations. I told him about my childhood before my wolf emerged, back when I'd still believed I'd be normal. Can I ask you something personal? He said after we'd finished eating. Of course. What happened when your wolf finally emerged? You were 22. What triggered it? The memory was painful, but I made myself answer honestly. Trauma. I was attacked by rogues. They thought I was fully human, easy prey. My wolf emerged to protect me, but she was broken from the start. The attack damaged something. Or maybe she was always going to be weak. I don't know. Killian's grip tightened on my hand, his eyes flashing silver. You were attacked? 3 years ago. I survived, obviously. But my wolf, she's never been right since. Can barely shift, can't hold it, no strength. The healers said it was psychological damage mixed with physical trauma. Who were the rogues? Dead. The pack that found me killed them. I met his fierce gaze. It's over, Killian. It was a long time ago. It's not over if it still affects you. His voice was rough with barely contained anger. If your wolf is still damaged, she's getting better. Slowly. Last night proved that. He took a visible breath, forcing his wolf back. I'm sorry. The thought of you being hurt, I know. But I'm safe now. Here with you. You are. You're safe, and you're mine. And I'll make damn sure nothing hurts you again. The possessiveness should have worried me. Instead, it made my wolf purr. We moved to the sofa after dinner, close enough that our thighs touched. He asked more questions, my favorite books, what I wanted to learn, places I'd never been but wanted to visit. I asked about his duties, the 7-packs, what kept him awake at night. You, he admitted. For months now. You keep me awake. In a good way? In a can't stop thinking about you way, which is both good and maddening. His arm slid around my shoulders, pulling me closer. I'd be working on important documents and find myself wondering what you were doing. If you'd eaten, if you were happy. That sounds distracting. Incredibly. My productivity has suffered. He said it lightly, but I heard the truth underneath. You've been my focus for months, Elena. The one thing I wanted, but couldn't have until I was certain. And now you're certain? Completely. His hand cupped my face, tilting it toward him. Are you? Certain about this? Was I? This powerful king who looked at me like I was precious, who valued my mind, saw my worth, made me feel essential, who wanted to share his life, his world, his everything. It terrified me. But the alternative, walking away, returning to invisible safety, felt impossible now. I'm certain about you, I said carefully, about wanting this. But I'm scared of everything else. The council, the politics, the responsibility, becoming queen. We'll handle it together. All of it. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my lips. But tonight, forget all that. Tonight, it's just us, just this. He kissed me, and it was different from before. Less desperate, more exploratory. Learning me, tasting me, savoring instead of claiming. I kissed him back, letting myself get lost in sensation. His hand in my hair, his scent surrounding me, the warmth of him, solid and real and here. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, his eyes were silver and satisfied. Stay, he murmured. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready for. Just stay. Talk more. Let me hold you. I should have said no. Should have maintained proper boundaries. But I didn't want to leave this warm, safe space where I was valued and seen. Okay, I whispered. I'll stay. His smile was brilliant. We settled on the sofa, my back against his chest, his arms around me, safe, protected, home. And we talked for hours about everything and nothing, sharing histories and dreams and fears, learning each other in the quiet intimacy of confession. Somewhere around midnight, I dozed off, warm and safe in his arms. I didn't hear him whisper, "Mine." Finally, mine. But my wolf did, and she agreed completely. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the warm weight of an arm around my waist. Panic spiked for half a second before memory returned. Killian's quarters, falling asleep while talking. Him carrying me to his bed at some point, both of us still fully clothed. I turned carefully to find him already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with soft eyes. "Morning," he said quietly. "I fell asleep. I'm sorry. Don't be. You were exhausted, and you look beautiful when you sleep." Heat crept up my neck. I should go. People will notice I didn't return to my quarters. Let them notice. His arm tightened around my waist. But you're right, you should go. Not because I care what people think, but because you need to eat and change and prepare for today. What's happening today? The council's formal investigation begins. They'll want to interview you, review your work, verify your background. His expression darkened. It's going to be invasive and uncomfortable, but necessary. When? This afternoon. 2:00, council chambers. He brushed hair back from my face. I'll be there, but I can't interfere. You'll have to speak for yourself. Fear spiked. What if I say the wrong thing? You won't. You're brilliant and honest. Just be yourself. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. But Elena? They're going to ask about your wolf. About the attack. About your time being packless. It's going to hurt. I can handle it. I know you can. But I hate that you have to. We stayed like that for a few more minutes, close and warm and reluctant to face the day. Then reality intruded in the form of a knock at the door. Sire? The morning council briefing begins in 20 minutes. Killian sighed. Duty calls. I reluctantly extracted myself from his arms and his bed, trying not to think about how comfortable I'd been. How right it felt to wake up beside him. He walked me to the door, stealing one more kiss before letting me go. Tonight? He asked. Same time? You want to have dinner again? I want to have dinner every night, but I'll settle for as often as you'll give me. His thumb traced my cheekbone. Say yes. Yes. His smile was worth every anxiety the day would bring. I slipped out of his quarters and hurried toward my room, hyper-aware of early morning servants who definitely noticed the archivist doing the walk of shame from the king's private wing. Let them notice, Killian had said. Easy for him to say. He was the king. I was just the wolf who'd somehow caught his attention. Back in my room, I changed quickly and headed to the archives. Work would steady me, give me something concrete to focus on before the afternoon's interrogation. But I'd barely settled at my desk when Archivist Brendan appeared, looking uncomfortable. Miss Rivera. A word? My stomach sank. Of course. He closed the door, which he never did. I've been asked to compile a complete record of your work since you arrived. Every project, every correction, every system you've implemented for the council's investigation. Yes, they want to verify your claims of competence. He paused. Elena, is it true? About you and the king? No point denying it. Yes, I see. He studied me for a long moment. For what it's worth, your work has been exceptional. The best I've seen in 30 years. If the council questions your value to this kingdom, they're fools. Warmth bloomed in my chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just keep being brilliant. He moved toward the door, then paused. The council can be ruthless when they want to be. Don't let them make you small. He left, and I spent the morning documenting my own work, every project, every improvement, every contribution I could prove. Building my case. By noon, I had a comprehensive portfolio. By 1:30, I was nauseous with anxiety. Kieran found me pacing outside the council chambers at 1:45. Breathe, he said, catching my shoulders. You've got this. They're going to tear me apart. Only if you let them. Remember, you've done nothing wrong. You're competent, honest, and the king chose you. That's not a crime. Feels like one. Elena. He ducked his head to meet my eyes. You survived 2 years of rejection. You rebuilt yourself from nothing. You prevented a war from a desk. You are strong enough for this. You just have to believe it. The doors opened. Marcus appeared. Miss Rivera, the council is ready for you. This was it. I walked into the council chamber with my head high, Kieran's words echoing in my head. You are strong enough. I just had to prove it. The council chamber was designed to intimidate high ceilings, stern portraits of former leaders, a semicircular table where 7 counselors sat in judgment. Killian sat at the head of the table, his expression carefully neutral. He caught my eyes once, briefly, and I saw the support there before his king's mask slid back into place. Counselor Thorne presided. Miss Rivera, thank you for joining us, like I'd had a choice. Please, sit. She gestured to a single chair in the center of the room, deliberately isolated. I sat, forcing my hands not to shake. This is a formal inquiry into your background, qualifications, and intentions regarding King Killian. Thorn began. "You're not on trial, but we do require complete honesty. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Excellent. Let's begin." She opened a folder. "You applied to 16 different packs before arriving here. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And all 16 rejected you. Why?" Deep breath. "My wolf emerged late and weak. They considered me a liability." Counselor Voss leaned forward. "Define weak." "I can shift, but it's painful and I can't hold the form longer than 15 to 20 minutes. I have no combat ability, no hunting skills. By traditional measures, I'm defective." "Yet you applied to warrior packs, hunting packs, packs where physical strength was clearly the priority. Why?" "Because I had to go somewhere. I was packless, homeless, and running out of options." Thorn's eyes were sharp. "Tell us about the rogue attack, the one that triggered your wolf's emergence." I'd known this was coming, but it still hurt to revisit. 3 years ago, I was attacked by 3 rogue wolves. They thought I was human, easy prey. My wolf emerged to protect me, but she was. I forced myself to continue. The healers said the trauma damaged her, or maybe she was always going to be weak. But after that attack, I couldn't shift properly. Psychological damage, combined with physical. The attack was brutal. I met Voss's eyes. I survived. They didn't. Because a neighboring pack heard the fight and intervened, killed the rogues, saved me. And yet that pack didn't offer you sanctuary. The old shame burned. No, they healed me and sent me on my way. Why? Because I was a liability. A weak wolf with trauma. They had no use for me. Silence. Let them sit with that cruelty. Counselor Ravencroft spoke next. "When you arrived here, you were hired as a junior archivist. Within 8 months, you've been promoted twice, reorganized the entire system, and apparently caught the king's attention. That's exceptional progress." The implication was clear, suspiciously exceptional. "I worked hard." "Or you positioned yourself strategically." Ravencroft's voice was cool. "You have access to sensitive documents, historical records, information that could be valuable to enemies." Anger flared. "Are you accusing me of espionage?" "I'm asking if you've used your position to gather intelligence that could be sold or traded." "No, never. I've done my job with integrity." "Can you prove that? Can you prove I haven't? You're making accusations without evidence." Killian's voice cut through the tension. "Counselor Ravencroft, if you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, present it. If not, move on from baseless insinuation." Ravencroft backed down, but the damage was done. They thought I was a spy. Or worse. Thorn intervened. "Let's focus on your work." Archivist Brendan provided a comprehensive record. "Your reorganization of the treaty system explain your methodology." Finally, solid ground. I explained the chronological thematic hybrid approach, the cross-referencing system, the redundancies I'd eliminated. I walked them through the genealogy errors I'd found, the supply chain inefficiencies, the document preservation techniques I'd implemented. With every answer, I saw grudging respect replacing some of the suspicion. But then Voss brought it back to my wolf. "If you were to become queen, your duty would include producing heirs. With a defective wolf, what kind of children could you provide? Weak wolves? Late bloomers? The royal bloodline has maintained strength for generations." The question hit like a physical blow. My worth reduced to breeding potential. "I don't know," I said honestly. "My wolf might pass on weakness, or she might not. Genetics are more complex than simple dominant recessive traits." "But you acknowledge the risk?" "I acknowledge the possibility, but I also acknowledge that strength comes in many forms. Intelligence, strategic thinking, empathy, these are inheritable too, not valued the same as physical dominance." Maybe they should be. I found my spine. This kingdom has plenty of strong warriors. What it needs are wolves who can think critically, solve complex problems, prevent wars instead of just fighting them. I may not be able to hunt elk, but I prevented a territorial dispute that would have killed hundreds. Which is more valuable? Silence. Killian's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the flash of pride in his eyes. Thorn leaned forward. "What do you want, Miss Rivera? Truly. Power? Status? Security? I want to belong somewhere. To be valued for what I can contribute instead of dismissed for what I lack." My voice steadied. "And I want Killian. Not the crown, not the position. Him. The man who sees my worth when I can't see it myself. Love, then. The possibility of it. If he'll let me. And if we formally object? If we tell the king this match is politically disastrous?" I thought about Thorne's question from yesterday, about what I'd do if they demanded I step aside. Then I'll abide by whatever Killian decides. If he chooses the kingdom over me, I'll understand. I'll step aside, but I won't make that choice for him. He deserves agency in his own life. More silence. The counselors exchanged glances. Finally, Thorne spoke. "We'll deliberate and provide our recommendation to the king. You're dismissed." I stood on shaking legs and walked out with as much dignity as I could muster. The moment the doors closed behind me, my knees almost buckled. Kieran was there immediately, steadying me. "You did great." They think I'm a spy, or a social climber, or both. They're doing their jobs, being suspicious and thorough. But Elena, you answered every question with honesty. That matters. What happens now? Now they deliberate, probably argue for hours. Then they'll give Killian their recommendation, which will be to reject me. Maybe, maybe not. Thorne looked thoughtful by the end. And your answer about stepping aside if necessary, that probably earned you points. I sagged against the wall, exhausted. I can't do this. The politics, the scrutiny, the constant judgment. Yes, you can. You just did. He squeezed my shoulder. Go rest. Eat something. Tonight, you'll have dinner with my brother, and remember why this is worth it. He was right. Whatever the council decided, whatever objections they raised, I had tonight. Dinner with Killian. A few more hours of feeling valued and seen. I'd take what I could get. The council deliberated for 3 days. 3 days of whispers following me through the palace. 3 days of speculative looks and barely concealed hostility from wolves whose daughters had been passed over. 3 days of Killian stealing moments with me between meetings, his frustration evident, but his resolve unshaken. On the third evening, he found me in the archives. "It's done," he said simply. My heart stopped. "And?" "Mixed recommendation. Thorne and 2 others support us. They found no evidence of wrongdoing and acknowledge your contributions. 3 counselors formally object on political grounds. 1 abstained, waiting to see how things develop. So they didn't approve. They didn't forbid it either, which in council politics means I can proceed. He pulled me close. "Elena, I told them my decision stands, with or without their blessing. That will cause problems. Let it. I'm done sacrificing what I want for political convenience." His hand cupped my face. "The question is, are you done hiding?" Was I? 3 days of scrutiny had been brutal, but I'd survived, answered every question, defended my worth, refused to be diminished. Maybe Kieran and Thorne were right. Maybe I was stronger than I thought. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm done hiding." His smile was fierce and proud. "Good, because tomorrow night, we're making this official." The claiming ceremony was held under the full moon. The entire pack assembled. I wore simple white, no elaborate gown, no excessive jewelry. This wasn't about spectacle. This was about truth. Kieran walked me to the platform where Killian waited, squeezed my hand once, and stepped aside with a smile that said, "I told you so." Killian took my hands, his ice blue eyes holding mine, and the world narrowed to just us. Elder Thorne officiated, her voice carrying across the gathering. "Speak your claim, Alpha." Killian's voice was clear and certain. 8 months ago, I watched Elena Rivera walk into this palace and thought, "There's someone interesting." I didn't know then that she'd prevent a territorial war, revolutionize our archives, and prove herself more valuable than any political alliance. He squeezed my hands. I didn't know she'd make me laugh when I was drowning in duty. That she'd challenge my ideas and make them better. That she'd see me as a person first and a king second. His voice dropped. intimate despite the hundreds watching. I choose Elena not because she brings political power or a perfect bloodline. I choose her because she makes me better than I could be alone. Because my wolf recognized her before I understood why. Because months ago, I watched my brother flirt with her, and it took everything in me not to say, "Wrong, brother. She's mine." Kieran grinned from his position beside the platform. "I choose you, Elena. My brilliant, brave, perfect mate." Tears blurred my vision as Thorn turned to me. "Speak your acceptance." I found my voice. I came here expecting to be invisible. I'd spent my life being invisible, the broken wolf no one wanted. But Killian saw me, valued my work, treated me like I mattered. I smiled through tears. I choose Killian not because he's the king, but because he's the man who spent months watching me, learning me, before making a move, who values partnership over possession. Who looked at me in that gathering and said, "Wrong, brother," and he was right. My voice strengthened. "Wrong, brother. Wrong choice. Wrong everything except you. I choose you, Killian Ashford. My fierce, protective, perfect mate." "The bonds are spoken," Thorn declared. "Let them be sealed." Killian pulled me close, tilting my head to expose my neck. When his teeth grazed my pulse point, my wolf surged forward in recognition. The claiming bite was quick, sealing months of building connection. Pain and pleasure tangled, and then the bond snapped into place. I gasped, feeling him, his love, his certainty, his wolf's satisfaction, complete. The pack howled acceptance, even those who'd objected. The bond was sacred, sovereign, and we were bonded. 2 months later, I stood in the archives where it all began, same corner, same desk, but everything different. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was queen. The title still felt surreal, but the work felt right. I'd expanded the archives, hired 3 assistants, all defective wolves who needed purpose, implemented a kingdom-wide system that saved countless hours. And I'd helped wolves like Mira, the young late bloomer, who now thrived in the treasury, proving strength came in many forms. Still hiding in the archives? Killian's voice made me smile. I turned to find him watching me with that familiar intensity. "Not hiding. Working. You're queen. You can delegate." "I'm queen who loves organizing information." I closed my ledger. "Some things don't change." He pulled me close, and through our bond, I felt his contentment, his love, his wolf's satisfaction. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. "None. You?" "Only that I didn't tell Kieran wrong, brother, the first time he flirted with you." His arms tightened. "But we got here eventually." I thought about the journey from packless and broken to queen and whole. About finding belonging not through changing myself, but through finding someone who valued exactly who I was. "I spent my whole life looking for somewhere to belong," I said softly. "Turns out, belonging isn't found. It's created, one brave choice at a time." Killian turned me to face him, cupping my face with gentle hands. "You belong here, with me, with this pack, not because you changed, but because we finally made space for who you've always been. A broken wolf? A brilliant wolf. A different wolf. My wolf." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Perfect exactly as you are." And standing there in the archives where it all began, bonded and claimed and home, I believed him. "Wrong, brother," he murmured. "Right everything," I replied. "Forever."